This is Lori from Scrapbook New England Getaways and Creative Memories, and today I'm going to show you how to make this project recipe from Creative Memories to create this really cool layout. So for this project you need 5 pieces of paper, 1 cardstock, 2 designer pages, an accent paper, and perhaps another cardstock or plain paper for your base. So I'm using bronze shimmer for my base on my left, and on my right I'm using designer paper. And you also need to use a punch of some sort to create a border. I use the Mandela punch for this particular layout. You could use your border maker cartridges and create a border that way. This is a result of the icicle border maker punch, which is really cool. Also looks like trees if you use green or dark color. So you could do any kind of border that you wanted on the sides. So you will want to punch your border before you cut it. So I'm going to punch my use my Mandela punch here. I'm going to make my border first all the way through, and then I'm going to put the border into my trimmer and trim it at 2.5 inches, which I've done here. Once you've punched your border, you're going to put it into your trimmer and find the 2-inch mark. You'll have created 2 pieces of your designer paper that are borders. Mark them A and B. And put them aside. Now, the same piece of designer paper, we're going to create C, D, and E. So C is 4.5 by 4.5 inches. Open this up. So find the 4.5 mark on your trimmer. First cut it that way, and then 4.5 this way. And again, 4.5. So you're going to have 2 4.5 by 4.5 inch squares. We're going to mark those C and D and put that aside. And with the last piece of your designer sheet that you've started with, we have this piece left over. This is E. This is 3.5 inches by 3 inches. 2.5 inches. So we're going to just trim that down. So it's 3.5 by 2.5. And that is E. And put that aside. And now with this last piece of designer paper, we're going to use the circle maker and line it halfway up. Make sure you have a forgiving mat underneath that is designed for cutting, and you're going to use the red blade. It's the most narrow between the 2 prongs. There's one. And there's 2. And that is F and G. All right, so I have my 3 pieces from the cardstock, and those are labeled L, M, and N. M and N, and put those aside. Now, with this final sheet, so you have 3 of those. You have 2 of the designers and 3 of those. And then with this final sheet that you have left over, it's 5.5. We're again going to use the half circle mark and create 2 half circles there, about halfway over, making sure that the prongs are inside the track. And you'll see how wonderful this looks when they're overlapped. Make sure you measure it. Make sure you get the circle right to the edge there, because I'm actually a little short on this side. I need to be careful. Okay, and those pieces are O and P. So I'm going to mark those, O and P. You could always use a pencil and erase it too, but you don't want to have a mess, so it's better to have the stickies if you can. All right, so now we're going to use our accent paper. And on this, we have some simple cuts. We have 4.5 by 12, 4.5 by 12 to start. So 4.5 inches across by 12, and then another 4.5 by 12. And on this piece, now, so these pieces are H and I. You can label them and move them aside. And then on this final piece, we'll be cutting smaller. So H and I put those aside. And now on this piece, this is asking for reverse. So because you have designer paper, you may have a pattern on the back. You want to be aware of which way the pattern is going when you're first cutting that designer paper. Always check and see first, which I didn't do, but it's still going to work. So this is 3 1/4 reversed. 3 inches times 4 inches. So 4 inches by 3, and the same thing for the other. 4 inches by 3. 4 inches. And you end up with J and K, which are 2 4 by 3 inch squares. And we'll mark those. And your cutting is done. Now we can put it together. So I've cut out all my pieces and I have them labeled, and now I'm going to arrange them on my base. I have a brown base on this side and a light blue base on this side. So taking the long strips, H and I, I'm going to position them one on each page. And then using a solid color border behind a designer border so that it's overlapping like that, I'm going to arrange that on the edge. So that's A on one side, and then B, the solid B, on the other side of the page. And then your designer. The nice thing about the designer paper is if you don't like the side that you've cut, you can always flip it over and use a different. So I'm going to actually use that gray side instead of the side that I originally had cut. And then H goes here. Now you can arrange your pieces any way you want, but for this particular project recipe, the half circles, one lays on top of the other, and one's positioned here on the left-hand page, and then one of your squares goes here at an angle. And don't tack them down yet. You want to make sure you really like it the way you have it going first. And then the other square is going up on the right-hand page. And your other semicircle, which is layered on top of your solid cardstock, whatever it is that you decided to use, is going to go there on that page. And now you have one border left over. And for that final border left over, you can trim it down and cut it, create a design, an embellishment that you can use on the semicircles. So the project recipe, which is posted at the beginning of this, will show you better. But it's basically folded in a design. The project recipe called for using the vine. So I would have one there, and then I will have another one down here. But you may need to trim it and round it a little bit, depending on which border you decide to use. You don't want it to look chunky. And that one will go there. Here we have a journal square in the bottom, which is at an angle like that. That's E and J. These pieces are G and P, and then this is N, which actually is shown behind that, which looks nice. And then here on this square, which I think I'll turn over, I'm going to put the words Frosty and another little embellishment of some kind. So I could even use the Border Maker cartridge pieces there if I wanted to as well. So there is your layout. Have fun putting it together. See you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe to our channel.